Right now on the National Weather Desk, it's October, but several places are still feeling the heat. We'll look at this year's record temperatures.
The entire country, at least the lower 48, was way above average.
Many areas across the country are still in a major drought. We'll find out how it's impacting farmers.
You need to take into account the lack of moisture since August, and then some disease pressure.
Why it could be harder to find a Christmas tree this year.
They're tagging the trees right now, getting a count of what's going to go, what's going to be for sale.
We'll learn about the work being done to restore the Baltimore Inner Harbor.
The $14 million initiative aims to restore the Inner Harbor's original Chesapeake Bay habitat.
Plus the latest fall foliage update.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Well, good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Janae Bowens. Now, although we are near the end of October, several places are seeing temperatures well above normal, and that has been a trend for the year overall. Many parts of the U.S. have seen temperatures well above normal month over month. Meteorologist Peter Hall breaks down the numbers.
New information in compiling the first full 9 months of this year. Take a look at what's been happening here. You take January through September of 2024, and the entire country, at least the lower 48, was way above average. Notice the red states there. That is the warmest on record, and records go back to 1895. And you take the lower 48 as a whole, it is the second warmest January 1st through September 30th on record, with many states either number 1 or number 2, or at least the top 5 to 10.
Now, more than 45% of the country is experiencing drought. That's according to the latest maps from the U.S. Drought Monitor. Now, the area with the worst drought are in red. They include West Virginia and Ohio, Southwest Texas, as well as Oklahoma, Wyoming, and Montana. All told, nearly 80% of the country is in abnormal dryness. Cities like Dallas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Minneapolis have seen no measurable rain all month. Now compare that map to exactly 1 year ago. You can see Louisiana and Mississippi were much drier last year, while West Virginia had no drought conditions. So the situation can change year over year. Now, drought is having major impacts on farmers across Arkansas. Steve White spoke to a corn farmer who says this year's weather is not only hurting his crop, but also his wallet.
Reflecting on the year that's been.
10,540.
Michael Divern saw a wet year quickly evaporate.
All right, we're going to have a big year, but then when you start to think back and you take into account the lack of moisture since August, and then some disease pressure late, that was going to take some of the top off of it.
Still, he says it's a good crop, and with corn prices dipping below $4, you'll need every bushel.
Can we call it a downturn?
Yeah, I think so. It just happened a lot quicker than maybe it typically has. Input prices, they always come down slower than the price of corn and soybeans do, but this time it was pretty quick.
This Central Nebraska farmer does his part to grow a crop while staying connected with others to amplify his voice in a world where the only constant is change.
It is all happening faster and faster than it ever used to.
The primary water source for the Texas Panhandle and beyond is under threat. It's due to a reduction in yearly rainfall and the ever-changing weather climate. But people are keeping close tabs on the water levels in the late fall and throughout the winter. Drew Powell reports on why these measurements are critical to the aquifer's longevity.
We can all do our part to save water.
The data that is collected from the winter water level measurements by the Panhandle Groundwater Conservation District is passed on to the Texas Water Development Board and the USGS, along with a number of other entities. From there, it is analyzed to determine just how much more water is left in the Ogallala Aquifer.
We run our E-line down into the well to measure the depth to water from the surface. And then we write it down and enter it into our system and then leave the property.
When it comes to the water level measurement program at the Panhandle Groundwater Conservation District, it's not limited to just wells that are tapped into the Ogallala Aquifer. There are a number of wells that are on people's property that are tapped into other aquifers or other water sources.
While our main aquifer is the Ogallala, we do have other aquifers, mainly the Dockham and Whitehorse and some other minor ones, but they're much smaller in size and hold much less water.
So the recharge rate in our area is about 1/4 of an inch per year. That's with average rainfall. We obviously have had a drier year, so it could be even less than that.
Collectively, if everyone will pitch in and do their part when it comes to water conservation, it will help make a difference in extending the life of the Ogallala Aquifer.
Turning now to Southwest Virginia, where one of the area's most popular trails is under repair after heavy damage from Hurricane Helene. Some call the Virginia Creeper Trail the lifeline of the town of Damascus. It's one of several trails that cross through the city's downtown area. Liam Bridgman has more.
18 of the 34-mile Virginia Creeper Trail has been destroyed. Bikers are able to enjoy the lower part of the trail from Abingdon to Damascus, but Trestle 17 is the end of the line.
This is one of the quieter, more peaceful trestles on the trail, and this is what we see today.
Lisa Quigley, the executive director at the Virginia Creeper Trail Conservancy, says the upper part of the trail has never seen so much damage. But fortunately, they've received help from groups from across the nation.
From the cabinet members in the current administration all the way down to the folks on the ground every day. Doesn't matter the political party, doesn't matter how you feel about one trail or one town over another. Everyone is working together, and that's a huge thing.
The trail isn't just a natural beauty, it's also a major economic driver. This is the first season Wendy Poplin has operated the bike station in Damascus. She encourages everyone to ride from the start in Abingdon to the heart in Damascus.
Our local restaurants, Airbnbs, our mill, the inn, we all revolve around the Creeper Trail. It is our lifeblood. It's what keeps us going, and we look forward to getting it all back.
A timeline for repairs is still unknown. That's because the upper part of the trail is still inaccessible. Once access is reestablished, there are plans to assess the damage and make the repairs necessary to get bikers back on the trail.
Now, in a few weeks, Christmas tree farms usually start cashing in on their yearly crop. However, Helene's damage is adding uncertainty over sales this year, but it could be part of the emotional healing process as the area continues to find its footing after the storm. Rex Hodge reports.
The routine may be the same year to year.
Right now is one of our busiest times.
Stephanie Underwood says crews are preparing the trees.
They're tagging the trees right now, getting a count of what's going to go, what's going to be for sale. If you see one with a blue tag, that's going to be a 6-7 foot tree. If you see one with a green tag, that's an 8 or 9 foot tree.
What's unusual this year is the impact of Helene in our mountains and the aftermath.
This season is going to be really important just because of the devastation.
There's some uncertainty how tree sales at a critical time
absolutely
will play out as many roads remain damaged. Some closed, like I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge.
Anybody coming west on I-40 or from that end can still get off exit 20 and be able to, come straight down here.
And Underwood says it's still possible to reach Haywood County from Tennessee on different routes.
They still will be able to get here. Might just take just a little bit longer.
A campaign is on, encouraging people to make the effort to buy a real Christmas tree from farms in our mountains, despite the storm.
There are a lot of areas of Haywood County and businesses that are open and are counting on having our visitors.
It's an industry that pumps $250 million each year into North Carolina.
Whatever tree farm, you decide to visit, just go support the tree farmers.
Underwood says equally important at Boyd Mountain is the experience, which can be healing after something like Helene.
Come see Santa Claus, pick out your Christmas tree. It's going to really bring some positivity back.
Now, we'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Just search the National Weather Desk or scan the QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll learn about the project that's working to restore the Baltimore Inner Harbor to what it looked like hundreds of years ago. And we'll check in on this year's apple crop in Tennessee.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
There's no shortage of gorgeous photos featuring fall leaves. This snapshot of beauty comes from the town of Burnsville in western North Carolina, which also is one of the areas hit hard by Helene. And this lenticular cloud was spotted outside of Vail, Colorado. These are often said to resemble spaceships, flying saucers, or even stacks of pancakes.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
One of the core pleasures of autumn are fresh apples, and like most things in fall, a lot depends on environmental factors. With apple season near its peak in Tennessee, meteorologist Lexi Horvath spoke with a local apple farmer to learn more about this year's harvest.
While it takes all 4 seasons to keep an apple orchard up and running,
it's just a constant turnaround.
This fall season is the one that counts.
About 90% of our income comes in September and October.
As Apple Valley Orchards in Cleveland, Tennessee focuses year-round for this.
Our peak harvest is September and October.
Busy preparing all sorts of goodies, from desserts, butters, sauce, jellies, candies, and much more. But this year in particular, one environmental factor has stood in between the orchard and perfectly large apples.
When they dry, the stem gets a little, dries out a little bit, and some varieties drop more during a drought.
While navigating the weather can be a challenge, including moments of drought and periods of heavy rain.
So has this been better or worse than previous years?
I'd say it's a little worse this year for us.
Owner Chuck McSpadden has made it work despite the impacts on sizes.
It has hurt size on certain varieties, especially the older trees like this one right here that's like 32 years old.
But a drought isn't getting in the way of apple lovers.
Definitely something we want to look forward to next year.
Now with Halloween just days away, many are wondering what the weather will be like. With that in mind, let's take a look at a recent TikTok post from meteorologist Amanda Verrier, all about major weather events that have taken place on Halloween in the past.
We're going to bring it back to 1989. We had extreme highs and extreme lows. 9 cities in the southwestern United States recorded record high temperatures this day. One of these being Phoenix, Arizona, coming in at 96 degrees. Meanwhile, 22 cities in the northeastern United States reported record low temperatures. Cleveland, Ohio, coming in at a low of 19 degrees. Moving on to Halloween of 1991 with the perfect storm. This storm started off as a nor'easter, but then it absorbed Hurricane Grace and then slowly evolved into a smaller hurricane later in its lifespan. Most of the damage that occurred from this storm was when it was extratropical and mainly to Massachusetts and New Jersey. It left 38,000 people without power. Fast forwarding to the 2011 Halloween nor'easter. This storm formed in the Carolinas and slowly moved up the coastline, breaking snowfall accumulation records all across the coast. Most of the damage from this storm was caused by snow falling and covering leaves on the trees, so it made it a lot heavier for the tree to support, so snapping branches and toppling trees. Power outages were seen throughout 12 states and rendered 3.2 million residents and businesses without power. 1 year later, Superstorm Sandy, 2012. This storm did a lot of damage and lived multiple lives. It made a landfall in Jamaica first on the 22nd as a hurricane, proceeded to hit Cuba on the 25th, still as a hurricane, and then moved up the coast where it made landfall a third time in Brigantine, New Jersey as a tropical storm.
Now winter is approaching and there's a change to extreme cold weather alerts. Meteorologist Kit Alexander explains.
This year, there's a change to a familiar system of advisories and warnings. As of October 1st, the wind chill advisories, watches, and warnings have been replaced by extreme cold watches and warnings. It goes without saying that cold weather can be dangerous with or without the wind. The change comes as the National Weather Service is aiming to improve messaging when it comes to cold weather hazards. Cold weather, as we all know, can be deadly. Frostbite can occur in just a few minutes in extreme cold temperatures. As always, make sure to heed all the watches and warnings. More information can be found at weather.gov.
After 12 years of research and innovative design, the National Aquarium in Baltimore has unveiled a new exhibit called Harbor Wetland. Emily Gracie shares why this is an important step forward in restoring what the inner harbor of Baltimore looked like hundreds of years ago.
The National Aquarium in Baltimore launched a groundbreaking environmental project this year with the opening of Harbor Wetland, a 10,000 square foot floating ecosystem. An essential part of any water system, but not something Baltimore's inner harbor has seen in decades.
So between land and water, you always have that wetland transition zone. All of that was removed through the development as Baltimore grew. So we're thinking, 150, 200 years ago, it was all shallow water habitat near the inner harbor. It has since been dredged. So now the harbor is this really big box of really deep water.
The $14 million initiative aims to restore the inner harbor's original Chesapeake Bay habitat and attract native marine species like blue crabs and oysters back into Baltimore's waters. But tidal wetlands do more than just that. They can also help prevent flooding.
So they have this ability to absorb a lot of water during flood events. And they also clean the water. So they remove nitrogen, phosphorus, which are two really big pollutants in the Chesapeake Bay.
The innovative design features over 32,000 native shrubs and marsh grasses planted on recycled plastic matting.
So we went through 3 different versions of floating wetlands that were about 200 square feet. And then we said, you know what? We're not going to buy anything off the shelf anymore. We're going to build our own, and we're going to design it for what Baltimore's harbor needs.
A sophisticated system of air-regulated pontoons and water circulation mechanisms mimic natural tidal movements while supporting the growing ecosystem.
And then we thought, well, it's successful, so let's scale it up again. And that's where we ended up with Harbor Wetland.
Beyond its environmental impact, Harbor Wetland will serve as an educational resource and perhaps inspire other post-industrial cities to do the same.
In Baltimore, we were the first to implement the technology in our area. Other cities like Chicago and up in Boston, they have started doing this, but they're just a little bit behind. So they're starting with the previous versions of floating wetland technology that we started with.
The Harbor Wetland is free and open to the public, giving residents and visitors an inclusive way to connect with nature.
we wanted to maintain a free opportunity for people to experience traditional Chesapeake Bay wetlands and kind of go through that nature cleansing and a communal space where you can just sit and do nothing.
Before we head to break, a look at fall colors in Maryland. These views are from Rock State Park, roughly an hour's drive outside of Baltimore.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Phil Kelly. I think what you're going to notice this week, breezy and warm conditions. We'll be near 90 in Wichita today, mid 80s in Kansas City. That warmer air is going to continue to feed into the Great Lakes regions. Look at me, 80-degree readings we're going to get on Tuesday. Not be surprised to see many record highs fall. We do have a cold front coming through, giving us some rain and some relief from the heat by midweek.
Good Monday morning to you. Meteorologist Chris Huchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with 60s and 70s, a little humid as well. Now we work our way through the afternoon. Unseasonably hot weather again. Highs well up into the 80s to around 90 at a couple spots. Also some gusty winds, Amarillo into Oklahoma City. Tuesday, very humid flow coming off the Gulf into the region, so a few sprinkles or shower possible. Warm, hot 80s and humid through the day on Tuesday.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We've got much cooler temperatures, in fact, below normal, coming through the Pacific Northwest as we've got a big trough of cool, unstable air moving through. That is causing quite a bit of mountain snow. High mountain snow for the Cascades, but stretching for the Intermountain West for Clearwaters and into Montana's Bitterroots for some high elevation snow. Cooler weather ahead. That's the scene from here.
The National Weather Desk.
Here's meteorologist Jordan Evans with this week's fall foliage update.
We've made it to the end of October and fall color continues to expand across the United States. Check out, we are past peak up to the north, the higher terrain as well, but still plenty of spots to view some good fall foliage outside the Flagstaff, Arizona area, the higher terrain of New Mexico, parts of the Denver metro, Salt Lake City, and the lower elevations there of Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, and parts of South Dakota starting to get their peak fall color. Farther to the north, Chicago almost at peak. Same for Omaha, Des Moines, Kansas City, St. Louis about a week to go. Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio also looking at peak color in the near future. New England, we are past peak up to the north for places like Vermont, New Hampshire, most of Maine, but still along the coastline, I-95 from Portland to D.C. approaching peak, if not already there, for places like New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Farther to the south, of course, it does take longer, so places like Oklahoma, Texas, the deep south too, Atlanta to Jackson, even North Florida could start to see some fall color as we go over the next several weeks into early December. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Jordan Evans.
thank you so much for joining us. I'm Janae Bowens. Make it a great Monday, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.